Well, we do know this, Tony, that any animal that is loved by a human being will survive the grave. In other words, we will be with those animals again because they do have a soul. God created them with a soul. And the fact that they were loved by human beings assures them that they will be with us someday.
I mean, what would heaven be without them?
I know.
I
Now, I
mean,
had
I
another
can't-
dog named Lucy that lived about a year with me.
Just
I
a
found
year.
on Route 84, a border collie. I found her on Route 84 on July 5th. I think the year was 1994. She died 1 year to the day, July 5th, 1995. She was a great dog, too. That was with me all the time. Anywhere I went, she went with me. With the losing animals, it's almost worse than losing a human being. A lot of people out there has lost everyone in his family. Lorraine has lost almost everyone in her family. I've lost everyone in my family, but it hurts the same as if it was a human. But that solace that Ed said, they will be there waiting for us. That's the thing that we cling to. And I hope that everybody out there that's walking around recently believes this. Because it is true that they will be waiting for us. On a lighter note, I think it's a lighter note, I think we talked about Japan. Ed was in Japan in 45 or 46?
45.
1943 to 1946, he was in the United States Navy, World War II. And he spent time in Japan in Nagoya, in Tokyo. You'll talk about it. But 55 years later, Ed is back to Japan. He's there in the war. He sees destruction all around him. Everything's different. It's just a nightmare back then. He goes back 55 years later, and that's the haunting. What do you have to tell us about that?
Well, it was so different than what I expected. You know, when I was there, I was on Okinawa. The war was over because of the atom bomb. We didn't expect it to be over. We were already putting numbers on our ships, you know, for the invasion of Japan. One day a small LSD pulled up, and this was in late August, and said that some bomb was dropped on Japan, and that it was going to end the war. Well, we didn't really believe it. Not until the second time we heard it. And of course, it was a horrible thing that occurred. I wish it never had to occur because
For over 2,000 years, people from all over the world have flocked to this place to celebrate the climax event from all of history, the resurrection of Jesus.
What's up guys, how's it going? Thank you for tuning in to another video. Today I'm teaching you guys how to drive manual. I have my beautiful 6-speed 2019 Mustang GT here, and we're gonna go ahead and show you how to drive manual using this car. So let's go ahead and jump inside because it is a super hot day here in SoCal. Alright guys, so before we get into driving manual, I want to go ahead and just mention a few reasons why you should learn how to drive manual. Driving manual is pretty much the ultimate way to feel connected to a car. It gives you a very nice, clean connection with the vehicle. You feel very in control. And it's a great way to learn how to drive in general. The reason is you can't really be distracted when you're driving manual. You have to kind of pay attention, be alert. And it really kind of takes some skill and takes some dedication of time and effort in order to learn and get good at driving a manual versus an automatic. So if you're learning to drive, it's a great way to start because it'll give you a very good solid foundation of how driving is and how to control a car and all the necessary tools you need to become a good driver. I definitely recommend a lot of teens start off learning how to drive manual because it'll decrease their time trying to text or message people and do anything that would distract them behind the wheel. And as you know, being distracted behind the wheel can be a major cause to a lot of deaths on the road. So the more that we are not distracted and we're paying attention, we're alert, it's the better for our safety in general. It's very enjoyable to drive as well. It's very rewarding feeling driving a manual car compared to an automatic. And at the end of the day, if you're a car enthusiast, it's a nice skill to have in case you ever meet somebody or meet someone or travel abroad where there's a lot more manual vehicles than there are automatics in certain countries. It's a very good skill to know and learn. So anyways, let's go ahead and get into it. There's a few basics that I'm going to cover today. The first is starting up a manual vehicle is a little different than automatic. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you why. So let's go ahead and turn off my car here. As you can see, when I turn off my car, I always put it in gear. The reason that we put it in gear is so the car doesn't roll back or forth or anything like that. Obviously, we lift our emergency brake, but that alone is not enough. You can always put the car in gear just to make sure that it doesn't roll around or move anywhere. So now that we have the car in gear, e-brake lifted up. Let's say I got out of the car, got back in it, I'm ready to go. First thing I need to do is press in my clutch, hold my brake, take the car out of gear here, put it back in neutral, and then this is neutral right here, the middle. So as you can see, there's a middle line right there. This is your neutral. So anything away from this point right here, that means you're in one of the gears. So you don't need to make sure that you know where your neutral is. I have a short shifter in here so it doesn't move too much, but you can see in the middle here it does move quite a bit, but if it was in gear it doesn't move at all. Alright? So as you can see now, we are in the middle, car's in neutral, we're good to go. Now the e-brake can stay up for now, it's okay. Now we can go ahead and start up our engine. The car starts up. Now if I wanted to start moving the car, I would go ahead and release my e-brake like that, and the car is ready to be moved. So once the car started up, it's in neutral. You can hold the brake just to make sure it doesn't move around, and you can release your clutch. So this foot right here is your clutch foot. The reason I say that is because you have 3 pedals in the manual, as you know, and this is the foot that is controlling that clutch. That's the only job it needs to do. It just needs to touch the clutch and make sure that the clutch is doing what it needs to do. So this foot does not touch the brake, doesn't touch the gas, nothing. Your other foot, which is your right foot, is going to be doing exactly what it does in an automatic car, where it is controlling the gas and the brake. So now that we know what our feet are doing, let's go ahead and tell you about the most fundamental part of learning how to drive stick, and that is learning how to engage your clutch properly. If you learn how to engage your clutch properly, you're going to have a car that's going to be running good for a long time. If you don't, you're going to break your car pretty soon and you're going to need a replacement clutch. So first things first, you want to go ahead and press in your clutch. The clutch needs to be pressed in all the way to the floor. And I mean that. When I say all the way to the floor, all the way to the floor. You want to press it all the way down until you feel the floor. That means your clutch is fully engaged. Or disengaged, I guess you could say. So now that I'm pressing my clutch all the way to the floor, I can go ahead and move my shifter into gear. So now that my shifter is in gear 1, and I have the clutch pressed all the way down, my foot is on the brake to make sure the car doesn't move anywhere, we can slowly start to release the clutch. And when I mean slowly, so this is your clutch, it's pressed all the way to the floor, this is the floor, this is your clutch, it's pressed all the way down, you want to slowly release it like that, like just a small, slow release. So I'm going to do that until I feel the car start to roll forward. Not giving it any gas whatsoever, just by releasing the clutch, the car will start to roll forward. So as you can see here, just slowly releasing it, the car will start to roll forward. And now once it rolls forward, I can remove my foot completely off the clutch, and I can start applying a little bit of throttle and the car will start to drive in gear number 1. So what I need you to do as a new manual driver, I need you to learn how to engage your clutch and where the engagement point is. That is a crucial point of learning manual. So if you learn where that clutch engagement point is, you will become a very good driver very quickly. So what I did when I first started was pretty much sit in a parking lot and engage and disengage the clutch, you know, time after time, just to realize where that point is. So you'll realize the moment that you engage the clutch, that the car will kind of pick up a little bit and start to roll forward. You don't even need to apply any gas for it to do that. It'll just do it on its own. It'll start just rolling forward, moving up, just by the, you know, neutral power of the engine pretty much. You don't even have to like press any gas. It's just that natural power in the engine will pick up the car and start moving it forward. Very slow pace, but it will do it. So now I want you just to sit there in a parking lot, practice releasing the clutch time after time after time until you get it. And then once you have that done, we're ready to learn how to shift. And we're gonna do our first shift together, all right? So put the car into gear. This is gear number 1. Slowly release the clutch. As the clutch is released, I can start applying a little bit of throttle. We'll start driving forward just like so. Now we're ready to shift. All I gotta do is press the clutch all the way to the ground, move the stick down to second gear, and slowly release it once again. And there we go. Now we're in gear number 2. Now we're getting ready for gear number 3. Same deal. Press the clutch all the way down, move the stick into the third gear, slowly release the clutch, and once again get back on the throttle. Anytime that you're touching the clutch or pressing the clutch all the way in, you want to remove your foot off the gas. So your feet are pretty much almost doing the opposite of what you know, of each other when you're driving. So if one foot is all the way down on the gas, the other one has to be up. When you're shifting, foot down, other one is up, shift, foot down, other one up, like that. So I'm kind of giving you a visual presentation of what my feet are doing right now. So that is how you shift gears. Now we're just moving. So you really, the shifting gears is pretty easy for the most part. It just takes a little bit just to perfect how smooth your shifts are, but you can shift gears.
Well covered in chips.
Tournament in the WPT twice, so I wouldn't say there's a pressure to do it, but I put a lot of pressure on myself anyway, so I always put pressure on myself to win. I hate losing.
Andy was not the only player to put pressure on himself, and East Coast pro Will Fiala's strong start was all part of his strategy.
I'm check raising my grandmother. I'm taking no prisoners. I'm slaughtering the out of everybody. Period. I'm only playing for the win. That's it. Nothing else but the win.
As the Royal Flush girls checked out the action, Bill Roth, who made this final table back in season 2, mused on how advanced the game has become.
Poker Theory has flown right behind me and past me. I feel like I should go back to the 1-2 no limit games, try and, you know, win $20 or something.
That table.
And Phil was not the only player in the field who was trying to make it back to another Legends of Poker final table.
I got second once. I would like to improve on that. I just would love to join the group of WPT champions.
As players began to bust, the talk on the tournament floor was about the new structure for Season 10, where players could re-enter on Day 1B if they were eliminated today.
Being a re-entry, I just decided, get it in there and come back tomorrow.
Re-entry tournaments are really, really good. Encourages people to fly out, gives them a second chance to play again if they bust 5 minutes into the day.
If I bust today, 100% I'm playing tomorrow.
As play winded down for the evening, reigning Legends champ Andy Frankenberger got all his chips in with 2 pair against the Season 8 LAPC runner-up Raymond Dolan's top set, sending Andy to the rail, but still alive to defend his title by re-entering on Day 1B.
Deciding whether I might come play tomorrow. Yeah.
141 players survived the day, including past Legends of Poker finalists Zach Clark, Tom Brabant, and Amit Natija. But the big stack belonged to tough young pro Matt Berkey.
It's, one of those days, you have them sometimes. Okay, players, good luck in your quest to make it to the final table. Let's shuffle up and deal.
435 players showed up in LA on Day 1B, bringing the Season 10 Legends of Poker total to 757 entrants, including players who, after busting Day 1A, re-entered for one more shot at having their name on the new WPT Champions Cup. Among the new faces in the room were the first WPT Legends of Poker champion Chris Karagulian and Season 5 champ Joe Pelton.
5 years ago exactly that I won the title here. It's good to be on that trophy. It's good to have my name amongst all the other great poker players and sort of be memorialized forever that way.
They faced some stiff competition to capture another title at the Bicycle Casino as many tough players took another crack at the first title of Season 10.
Day 1B, we're back for the second chance, and it's going way better than yesterday.
I really love the whole buyback in Day 1B thing.
I like it because it means I get 2 cracks at it.
Whenever I'm here, I just feel like I can't lose.
But for Michael Winnett, better known as Squeaky, Season 10 marked a new beginning.
Currently, Squeaky is a character in rehabilitation. I had a lot of fun with it. Unfortunately, the casinos had other ideas.
Next time is 3 rounds, and then you're out of the tournament.
But do you understand what I'm
doing? So don't do it.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
I'm explaining to you the rules of the tournament.
And Squeaky is probably the most penalized and kicked-out player that exists. For now, Squeaky is gone.
And the new Michael spent the day staying out of trouble and quietly building his stack. At one of the tougher tables in the room, WPT finalist Alias Longing found himself all in pre-flop with Season 9 ones to watch Matt Affleck and WPT champ Taylor von Kriegenberg vying for a side pot. After Taylor bet the flop, Matt got out of the way, and Ollie was able to triple up his short stack with a set of 10s while Taylor took down the side pot and finished the day well above average in chips. But it was Season 5 WPT Player of the Year, JC Tran, who made the most of his re-entry on Day 1B. JC had not cashed in a WPT event in the past 4 seasons, but on this day, he crushed the competition and to end the day as chip leader. JC was not the only past WPT Player of the Year to survive the day. Gavin Smith, Jonathan Little, and Season 9 Player of the Year and reigning champ of this event, Andy Frankenberger, were part of the tough field that would combine with the remaining players from Day 1A to continue to battle for the Legends of Poker title. On Day 2, the remaining 338 players settled in for a long day of poker, and Season 10 one to watch Dan O'Brien summed up the mindset for the day.
Strategy is just to get some chips, you know, like my table's pretty good. There's a little bit of action.
Dan made the most of his table draw and added to his stack early on, but Day 2 marked the end of the road for many players, including reigning champ Andy Frankenberger.
I don't think anyone expected me to defend, so I think I'm the only one who's disappointed. Everyone else is like, of course he didn't defend.
You know, I didn't get to the best start this afternoon, and I lost half my stack really early, and I just never really recovered from it.
These things are a lot harder. Cash game, I can show you how to win every time. There's too many people on.
But many players' chip stacks were moving in a positive direction, including Alec Torelli.
I'm sort of OCD, so I'm trying to align all the chips, but then sometimes I cheat, like back here where I kind of like don't align them because you can't see them from the front. So only you guys really know that this is not totally kosher. But yeah, I've had a few really good spots today. People bet, and then I just have a hand.
And young pro Cody Slaybaugh used his stack to put pressure on both JC Tran and multiple WPT finalist Amnon Philippi.
Seems to be playing pretty well. Against me, he's making all the right decisions, and I'm making all the wrong decisions. So, I mean, he seems to be playing good. He's holding his own.
Last season's Legends fourth-place finisher Tom Brabant was also running well in the familiar setting of the Bicycle Casino.
I feel really comfortable here. Like, they seem to treat the players really well. It's nice to walk outside, California sun during the breaks and stuff. It's nice.
And Titan Tom was in a race situation with California native Vincent Rubianes with Ace King versus Vincent.
The offshore oil drilling platform Berkut, located 15 miles from Sakhalin Island on the shelf in the Sea of Okhotsk, is one of the largest in the world. It's a huge 6-story, fully autonomous plant on giant reinforced concrete piles, which not only drills new wells, but also simultaneously extracts several thousand tons of oil from a huge depth every day. It's a real monster with an incredibly complex anatomy. When you approach the platform by air, you realize that it really looks like a bird. Berkut means golden eagle, but the rig looks more like a fat pigeon, which sat down to rest on the surface of the Sea of Okhotsk. But no real birds are to be found here. It's too far from the coast. It takes 40 minutes by helicopter to reach the rig from the nearest town. By sea, 8 hours. Ships typically deliver equipment and provisions to the platform, and personnel for the next shift arrive by air, when the fickle regional weather permits, of course. Well, what can I tell you about Sakhalin? The island sees nice weather, well, not often, but here on the platform it's even more rare. In this kind of fog, for example, a helicopter can't fly. So sometimes the workers are forced to wait for the weather to change for days or even weeks after the end of their shifts. Berkut is built on a gravity-based structure. That is, unlike floating platforms, it stands firmly on a reinforced concrete foundation which is fixed to the seabed. The base alone weighs 160,000 tons. It was made in Russia, not far from Vladivostok, and towed to this place over 1,200 miles away. Essentially, it resembles an inverted stool. Once the hollow lower part of the base was flooded with water and the platform sat on the seabed, all that remained was to carefully place the upper part of the platform, with all the equipment in the living area, on the legs, sticking out above the surface of the water. By the way, note that on the middle section of the legs of this giant stool, there is a ring of concrete of a slightly different color. This is the so-called ice protection belt. The designers calculated that this section of the supports is approximately where the 6 feet of ice on the surface of the sea would hit. That's why the concrete there is of the highest quality. It's incredibly durable. Previously, on other similar platforms, such belts were made of steel. But it turned out that the ice often tore the metal sheets from the supports during strong winds or storms. Such an incident cannot happen here under any circumstances. The platform is located directly on a tectonic section, and therefore it was designed to withstand even the most intense earthquakes. That's thanks to sliding bearings, like this one here. In essence, they work like our knee joints. Below are ball joints, on top, well, let's call it a patella. In the event of an earthquake, the entire upper part of the platform slides along these supports, thereby dampening vibrations. They say they can withstand up to a magnitude 9 quake, but heaven forbid that ever gets checked. The upper part of the platform was made in South Korea. It took several years to build a 6-story, high-tech, fully autonomous oil refining complex. At the very end, the structure was crowned with a huge oil derrick like a Christmas tree topper. By the way, that was made in Russia, in Kaliningrad. It was delivered to South Korea by sea, then it was carefully installed on the top of the platform with the help of the world's only marine crane with a lifting capacity of 7,000 tons, which had to be rented specifically for the operation. Again, in order to compensate for vibrations during earthquakes, all the pipes and oil wells that go from the upper part of the platform to the lower one have joints here, which are covered with black reinforced rubber cuffs. These couplings allow the pipelines to shift at the connection points relative to their axis, and thus provides a guarantee that they won't burst if something happens. However, this is just one of the many ways to protect equipment from unforeseen incidents. The oil platform, like a huge factory, doesn't stop working for even 1 second. It functions day and night because it would take several dozen hours just to start it up again. But you can stop it in an instant with this emergency shutdown button. I was told to not even breathe on it. Later, I wouldn't be able to say it was an accident. That pause would cost the companies several $million. When this button is pressed, all the machines stop. All the oil wells are killed. The generators turn off, the circulation of gas and oil stops. In general, the platform completely freezes and goes into damage control mode. This protocol, by the way, is the same for all offshore production platforms, and it was written based on accidents that happened in the past. Right now, there are 237 people on the Bittercoop platform. In general, this figure fluctuates all the time. Specialists come and go, but there is an ironclad rule. There cannot be more than 240 people. That's because that's the maximum number of places in the lifeboats. There are 4 of them, and it works out to be 60 people per boat. They're a little larger than an ordinary minibus, which means the passengers are packed in here, well, literally like sardines. But during an actual emergency, as they say, there is no room for complaints. Surviving is what counts. Bittercoop's lifeboats have never been used, and the same goes for the emergency shutdown button in the central control room. It's never been pressed. All the main parameters of the station's operation are constantly flowing into this room. From the dozens of graphs and jumping columns on these monitors, the operator draws a conclusion about the condition of the station, just like a doctor draws a conclusion about the condition of a patient's health by looking at his cardiogram. By the way, since the staff working on the platform is an international one, all announcements are made in English. Only when the operator understands that a native Russian speaker is answering him can he switch to his native language. The diesel engines need checking. If the central control room is the brain of the platform, its heart is, of course, the drilling site. It's located at the very top on the 6th story of the platform. Its lofty position in the structure comes despite the fact that the drill pipes in the drill itself, so to speak, drifters call it the bit, goes over a mile under the platform and, accordingly, deep into the seabed. In general, offshore drilling is one of the most difficult processes on Earth. Honestly, only space flights are more difficult. Here, on an area of several square feet, you might say that you can find all of humankind's achievements in engineering. And if we simplify everything as much as possible, we can say that everything is controlled by this one joystick. It has only 4 options: higher, lower, faster, and slower. Everything is ingeniously simple. Well, this, I repeat, is if we simplify everything as much as possible. But if we go into a little more detail, the joystick controls the manipulator, which in turn pulls out or puts the drilling tool and pipes into the well. They are more or less looking for oil by touch. The Arcutun Dagi Reservoir, on which the Bittercoop platform is located, is one of the richest in the Far East. Nevertheless, it doesn't represent one huge oil bubble. It's a multitude of large and small cavities filled with hydrocarbons. Dozens of wells diverge from the platform in different directions underground, sometimes going 3 or even 4 miles to one side. Wells, like the mouth of a mosquito, foot by foot, look for oil-filled cavities so that they can then begin to suck it out from them and bring it to the surface. It turns out that under Bittercoop there's a whole cluster of wells, and every few months another one is added to the list. Anyone who has tried to drill into a concrete wall at home knows that it's best to use drills with serious tips, with special add-ons. Well, here it's about the same. The drill itself is made of high-strength steel, and the cutting elements are made of artificial diamonds. This is almost like a piece of jewelry, although it looks pretty brutal. And in case you were wondering, it costs more than a diamond ring, even though these rocks don't sparkle. This is how more and more sections of long pipe are screwed on top of the chisel, which rotates the steel worm at high speeds. The whole construction bites deeper into the rock, going further and further until the drillers find and form a well. The position of the tool is monitored every second by the drilling foreman from this room. It's called the doghouse by those who work there. Its walls are made of armored, heat-resistant glass and are reinforced with a steel grill on top. Oil or gas can escape from the well under enormous pressure, and these protective layers can save the lives of those who are inside. However, this is already a last line of defense. One level below the drilling site, there is a unit that will not, in principle, allow any such incidents to occur. Generally speaking, there aren't any unimportant machines on the rig, but this one is really one of the most important. It's called the Preventer. 2 knives are installed inside, and in the event of an accident, they simply cut off the well along with the pipe, made by the way of high-strength steel, and thereby plug the emergency well. It's never been used throughout Berkut's operation, and hopefully it won't have to be, but it's ready to be employed 24 hours a day. The Preventer is only installed on a well that is currently being developed, that is, where the drill is still looking for cavities of oil under the seabed. And the wells that have already been drilled and handed over to operators are considered to be calm and more or less safe. The fact is, the pressure in them is already understood, the density and composition of the hydrocarbons is known, and they usually don't present any surprises. After all that is established, barrel after barrel can be pumped out of here. This room can be seen as the narrow bottleneck of the Berkut oil platform, if you like, through which all the oil produced here runs. Each of these thick columns is a well that goes deep under the seabed for up to a few miles. Then they all converge into one large pipe, and through it, the oil is sent off to the mainland. But before that, here at the sampling stands, a little bit of oil is taken from each well. Here it is. The black gold of Arcutun Dagi. It's more brown, really. Sort of reminds you of hot cocoa. Or something. The black rubber skirts you see here on the pipes are, again, the same cuffs that are designed to dampen vibrations in case of possible earthquakes and compensate for any deformation. In total, the platform is designed to accommodate 45 wells. To date, about half that number have been drilled. There is one unique well in Berkut which even differs in color. All the others are labeled in yellow, but this one is orange. It's designated DD1, and its peculiarity is that there's no oil inside. Moreover, the liquid in here doesn't go up at all, but on the contrary, is pumped down from here. This is filled with drilling waste, dirty industrial water. In short, everything that cannot be dumped into the sea is pumped down this well into a cavity from which oil was pumped out of earlier. It's their rather original way of sweeping dirt under the rug, I suppose. This method of disposal, by the way, is considered to be perfectly environmentally friendly. On Berkut in general, they carefully make sure that no oil products get into the sea, judging by the giant colony of crabs which has chosen to hang out on the platform supports, and by the fact that sea lions regularly swim on by. They appear to be successful in that. But back to the spoils. The safety and operation of the wells through which the oil enters the platform is ensured by equalizing the pressure inflicted on it. The thing is, the pressure on the surface is normal, atmospheric, but underground, inside the oil cavities, it's enormous because miles of earth and water rest on it, pressing on the pocket from above with their weight. And so, to keep the oil from gushing from the well in the giant fountain, you just need to apply from the surface the exact same amount of pressure that's felt inside the cavity. That is, equalize it. Special compressors and hydraulic valves are responsible for this. And this is where the hydraulic valves of the wells are controlled. On the outside, it looks like nothing special, just a bunch of valves. Come with me, I'll show you what's inside. Well, do you still think that your bathroom layout at home is a complex one? Speaking of bathrooms and fresh water in general, it's made right here on the platform. Water from the sea is desalinated using this machine. It looks pretty intricate, but in fact, it's just a reverse osmosis filter, the kind that many of us have under our kitchen sinks at home. Salt water from the Sea of Ojotsk is pushed under pressure through a membrane that has many holes in it. But the openings are so small that only water molecules can pass through them. Salt and other impurities are caught on the membrane. All that's left to do is to change the filters on time and to be mindful of water consumption, of course. What is most striking on Berkut is not the abundance of various machines, but how compactly they are all packed in there. The platform only seems huge for a day. Then you come to understand that it's incredibly cramped, because here, on an area of just 1.5 soccer fields, they managed to fit a drilling complex, production complex, a full-fledged oil refinery, residential blocks, a helipad, its own power plant, and even a small in-house chemical production facility. This place is called the Chemical Injection Area. It sounds threatening, but it's actually quite simple. Experienced homeowners know that you need to periodically add a special powder to your washing machine so that deposits don't build up in there. Wells are about the same. Chemicals must be added to them, which prevent corrosion from occurring, prevent paraffin from sticking to the pipe walls, and so on and so forth. In general, everything is almost like in that old ad. Remember, may the platform serve for a long time. All units are configured to work independently. The need for human intervention has been purposely minimized. In fact, people here, apart from carrying out the hard physical labor on the drilling rig, mainly fulfill a control function. This, of course, creates a deceptive impression that the platform runs all by itself. The only place you're likely to find a crowd on Berkut would be in the holiest of holy areas of the structure, the dining room. Jokes aside, the dining room is one of the most important places on the platform. It works around the clock, and here you can not only eat, but also come at any time, for example, for a cup of coffee. And it also performs one other very important function. It is the main gathering place in the event of any abnormal emergency. Well, and as for the food itself, everything is simple and straightforward. Well, we've got, for example, meatballs, pasta, mashed potatoes. Sure, the Sea of Ojotsk, famous for its seafood delicacies, is only about 100 feet below us right now, but there is no crab, no scallops, no sea urchins, nothing like that on the menu. Everything is filling and safe. At the same time, though, it's all very tasty and incredibly high in calories. The portion sizes are huge. During the 6 days that we stayed on the platform, I personally gained 6 pounds. Here, in principle, they approach any production on a grand scale, be it oil production or cooking dinner. And all these processes require a huge amount of energy. I'm not talking about the dining room anymore, of course. Can you imagine how many kilowatts of energy it takes to crank 4 miles of steel pipe underground that has to follow a complex trajectory and twist around like a garden hose? The platform consumes a huge amount of electricity. Where to get it all from? For that, Berkut has its own on-site power plant. It consists of 4 powerful turbines. They run on gas, which is produced here. It's very convenient. You don't have to worry at all about fuel consumption here. Each turbine has a power capacity of 15 megawatts. They generate the amount of electricity that would be needed to power half a city, like Yuzhno-Sakhalinsk. At the same time, the entire energy facility is again managed by only one person, an arrangement almost impossible to imagine on the mainland, but here it's simply the way things work. And although the work at Berkut is incredibly difficult, this is the very case when there are literally no irreplaceable people here. No matter what important position you hold, at the end of your watch, a helicopter will arrive and bring someone who will replace you. Again, only when the capricious Sakhalin weather permits it. There's almost no wind blowing here now, but sometimes it gusts so hard that this net has to be kept on the helipad. It's called an anti-slip net, and it's necessary to keep multi-ton helicopters from simply being blown off of here into the ocean. So despite the fact that people here live, well, as in that very song, near where the sun rises, the place is actually quite far from being a romantic one. However, many of those who work on Berkut disagree with me. It is incredibly difficult, dangerous, and critical work, but at the same time, incredibly interesting work. And even our film crew, who due to bad weather got stuck on the Berkut platform for almost a week instead of the 3 days we planned on, was reluctant to fly away. And who knows, perhaps we'll come back. The life cycle of this monster is calculated to go until 2050.
Над Сахалином низко облакам, но я встаю над соткой с позаранку, показываю солнце рыбакам, и шлю его тебе на Якиманку, а почта с пересадками летит с материка до самой дальней гавани Союза, где я швыряю камушки с крутого бережка далекого пролива Лаперуза.
Get access to hundreds more exclusive history documentaries by downloading the History Hit app.
August 6, 1945. The United States drops an atomic bomb on the Japanese city of Hiroshima. 3 days later, they do the same in Nagasaki. The power of nuclear energy is demonstrated. Both cities and their populations are decimated. Out of the ruins of World War II, two superpowers emerge. The Soviet Union and the United States are now in a race to harness nuclear power.
The Cold War after 1950s was about the nuclear arms race. And the #1 driver in the nuclear arms race was technology.
It was an unprecedented militarization of both sides, which changed the perception of how much you can spend on defense.
Atomic and hydrogen bombs and intercontinental ballistic missiles. Nuclear power that fuels invention, weapons proliferation, and purpose beyond destruction. The Cold War, a decades-long struggle between two superpowers and former allies, the United States of America and the Soviet Union. But beyond the ideological divide of capitalism and communism was a battle of another kind, one for technological supremacy.
And for each of these systems, science and technology were critical for how they were going to thrive and grow and bring prosperity and justice for their people.
Experimentation with nuclear power, innovation of weapons technology, exploitation of science capabilities.
The entire space program, you could argue, was a creature of the Cold War.
A race for scientific supremacy that lifts humanity beyond Earth's atmosphere, drags the world to the brink of nuclear annihilation, and launches decades of research into scientific and engineering marvels that continue to define the modern world. (1945). War has raged across Europe for 6 long years. In January, the horrors of war are made real as prisoners from Auschwitz are liberated. In April, Soviet forces capture the German capital of Berlin. Italy's fascist leader, Benito Mussolini, is dead, executed by his own countrymen. Days later, Germany's leader, Adolf Hitler, takes his own life. By May, Germany surrenders unconditionally. The war in Europe is over. But in the Pacific, the fighting continues. Allied forces may have turned the tide against the once seemingly unstoppable might of Japan. But Japan does not surrender.
They're not allowing themselves to be taken prisoners. They're dying to the last man. So it looks like if you're going to invade the Japanese home islands, and that was the plan in September 1945, you might take 500,000 casualties.
Allied leadership determines that a swift and decisive conclusion is better than an ongoing and costly invasion of the Japanese mainland. The United States President, Harry Truman, sanctions the use of a new weapon, one that has been in development for the past 6 years. August 2nd, 1939. A letter arrives on the desk of then U.S. President Franklin D. Roosevelt, co-authored by fellow physicist Leo Szilard and signed by theoretical physicist Albert Einstein. The letter warns of Germany's advanced research into fission chain reaction.
It all begins with Einstein's letter. Now, a couple guys, particularly Leo Szilard, who's a Hungarian Jew, went to see Einstein at his home in Long Island. And the only way to capture the attention of the president in 1939 was have the most famous scientist in the world write a letter to the president, where he says the Germans have made a breakthrough here, and that it's possible that because of the fission of uranium to deliver great explosive power.
Just to give you an idea, one fission event produces 10 million times the energy of a chemical reaction.
Here, experiments with primeval atomic power led to the splitting of the uranium atom, force of the cosmic bomb.
Discover the past with exclusive history documentaries from History Hit and uncover the secrets of some of the most famous people and events in history. History Hit brings you the stories that shaped the world through exclusive documentaries from the world's top historians. Travel with us to the bloody Battle of Stalingrad or uncover the lives of the people who called Pompeii home. We also aim to bring you the stories and legends that shaped our world through our award-winning podcast network. Sign up now for a free trial, and Timeline fans get 50% off their first 3 months. Just be sure to use the code TIMELINE at checkout.
Not every atom can undergo fission, only some can. And even for those that can undergo fission, it is often not a spontaneous reaction, but requires an initiating event. For instance, the absorption of a neutron. So if you get a heavy atom, that's pretty much anything in the bottom half of the periodic table, and you throw neutrons at it, probability is that they will absorb the neutron. A small subset of those atoms, after absorbing the neutron, would decide to split in two, and that's fission. Uranium-235 and plutonium-239 are two such atoms that behave like that.
That such a bomb might be used against American targets, ports, cities, and military bases, persuades Roosevelt to fund a nuclear weapons research and development program, the Manhattan Project. In Lower Manhattan, in federal office buildings on Broadway and Chambers Street, U.S. Army Corps engineers begin coordinating the atomic bomb project. General Groves, the project's director, appoints a young physicist, Julius Robert Oppenheimer, to lead the project's secret weapons lab.
You couldn't invent these guys. You get General Groves, who built the Pentagon, very stern type guy, sort of an administrator. And he appoints a left-leaning American physicist, Robert Oppenheimer, is in charge of the project. You got all these left-wing guys who are being then poached by the American government to develop a nuclear weapon before anybody else does.
For added security, away from public scrutiny and prying eyes, the Manhattan Project transfers the lab to Los Alamos, New Mexico.
These guys are working 6-7 days a week. After a while, they're working around the clock. That is, they have different teams working on it. We got people in Tennessee working on the uranium. We got people in Washington State working on producing plutonium, and there isn't much of either one of them around. And they had something that the Germans didn't have. They had a blank check. And they had the best scientists in the world all concentrated in one place. And technological people, that is people who could build bombs, started to work together. Chemists, engineers, theoreticians, etc.
Once upon a time, men of science were preoccupied with the task of transmuting metals into gold. Now, we hope, the modern alchemists are proceeding with the job of using atomic knowledge for the benefit and not the destruction of mankind.
July 16th, 1945. The world's first atomic bomb is tested in the New Mexico desert. The result of the combined efforts of the United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom, The weapon, nicknamed the Gadget, releases an explosion the equivalent of 20,000 tons of TNT. The blast all but destroys the 30-meter-high platform from which it is dropped and creates a mushroom cloud that reaches 12 kilometers high. Just a few years after the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor and Roosevelt's declaration that the United States enter the war, the atomic bombs born from the Los Alamos laboratory descend upon Japan. First in Hiroshima, then in Nagasaki. The bomb that explodes over Hiroshima is dubbed Little Boy, while the one dropped on Nagasaki is called Fat Man. Both deliver instant devastation on an unimaginable scale.
The two weapons relied on the same principle of trying to create a critical mass of fissile material in as little time as possible before it would detonate and explode into many pieces.
Little Boy is a 4,400 kilogram, 3-meter long, 70 centimeter in diameter gun-type nuclear weapon. Two separate portions of uranium-235, a target and a projectile, are fired into each other, triggering a chain reaction.
The bomb that was used in Nagasaki, also known as Fat Man, relied on an implosion type. In an implosion type device, you have a sphere of your fissile material that is surrounded by conventional explosives that are carefully arranged in such a way that if you detonate them all at the same time, they compress the sphere of fissile material and they get smaller and smaller and smaller at the point where it can reach critical mass. And in the middle of that sphere, you would have the initiator, which would start producing neutrons as it gets compressed. And the initial shock wave that compresses the plutonium sphere is also what stops it for a fraction of a second to explode out.
It is an atomic bomb. It is a harnessing of the basic power of the universe. The force from which the sun draws its power has been loosed against those who brought war to the Far East.
The destruction wrought by these new technologically advanced weapons is without precedent. In Hiroshima, 70,000 out of 76,000 buildings are damaged or destroyed. Civilian casualties are immense and continue to climb months after the initial explosions. August 15th, 1945, Emperor Hirohito announces the surrender of Japanese forces. The Second World War is over, and the atomic age begins.
They were defeated by modern science. So modern science allowed the Japanese a face-saving gesture to get out of the war. In the end, they were defeated by technology, and the lessons of that technological defeat carried straight through to the Cold War.
Will this power, now available to man, bring another, even more suicidal war upon us? Or can it be made to rule out war and open a new, progressive chapter of history, the atomic age?
The United States is now the sole superpower in control of this devastating technology. But power is always tested.